Okay, great. All right, welcome everyone. It's September 19th, 2025. This is the Colorado Forest Health Council's Legislative Committee meeting, and it's September 19th, I think I said that, 2025, and we are here. We've taken roll call and we have a quorum. And so for our legislative committee, and now we'll move on to our next agenda item, which will be approval of the September 5th, 2025 minutes. Has anyone found any items they wanted to change or had questions about on the minutes that were in our agenda packet? Great, I'll welcome a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
So we got Pat Dorsey she had her hand up first, Mr. Morgan, and then you'll be the second. How's that? I'll let her be first this time. Great. So we have a first and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, if you could just signal by saying aye, raise your hand. Aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? Wonderful. We have improved those minutes, and now we'll move on to our presentation today from the Colorado Department of Natural Resources. We're very grateful for all those folks who have joined us today, and I will turn this over to who is presenting today. Allison, are you? Or
A slew of us are presenting today. Myself,
who would like to kick it off?
I'll kick it off. And just let me take a second to share my screen. And actually, maybe while I'm pulling it up, Courtney, would you start off by introducing yourself and then pass it to Tori, and then Tori pass it to Chris, just for some introductions before we begin?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. You all know me very well from my role at the Forest Health Council, but I also wear another hat most of the time, and that's as the program administrator for the Colorado Strategic Wildfire Action Program, which is the forest health and wildfire mitigation program that's within DNR, outside of the State Forest Service, within the Executive Director's Office. So I'm going to be sharing today a little bit about that program. I know you've all heard about it, and hopefully, you can learn something new today. And I want to pass it to Tori. And Tori, I will, I think Montague, but I'll also let you correct that pronunciation and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tori Minogue. I am with Colorado Parks and Wildlife. I'm the Western Slope Regional Partnership Coordinator. So today I'll be providing updates on Colorado's outdoor strategy and our regional partnership initiative. And I will pass it to Chris.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Chris Sturm, the Watershed Program Director with the Colorado Water Conservation Board, and I'll just be providing a brief update on the Wildfire Ready Watersheds program.
Great. And good morning, everyone. Allison Lurch, Assistant Director for Forest Health and Wildfire Mitigation. And I'm just going to be starting us off today and then passing it over to Tori, Chris, and Courtney to really do the bulk of the presentation. So just
Allison, can I pause you just for a moment?
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to do that. I'm sorry. Please forgive my interruption. But I wanted to we had talked about this the last meeting, that we would have those 4 questions. Maybe as we were listening to this presentation, we had talked about that maybe we needed to kind of keep those in mind and have those asked at every question. So I don't know. I know you sent that out. Put those in the perfect. Thank you, Roberta. Just for all of us to have. We haven't really approved these yet as a committee, and we can share with the Forest Health Council when we get through that. But I think just as we go through this presentation, to have those kind of front of mind, and then you all have probably seen those too. I know Allison has seen them, but just wanted to kind of have those in front of you so you can think about that as we go forward, or maybe you all can think about it as we go forward. And again, my apologies for interrupting, and thank you, Roberta.
Not a problem, Commissioner. And great if everybody can see, or at least see those questions in the chat. That's great. So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here for a presentation about the Department of Natural Resources, We did our introductions beforehand, but I'm just really grateful to be able to represent two of our divisions in the Department of Natural Resources today, and then of course the Colorado Strategic Wildfire Action Program, which is a special program under the Executive Director's Office. I just wanted to start briefly and share the DNR's mission and role in Colorado. Our mission is to develop, preserve, enhance Colorado's natural resources for the benefit and enjoyment of people today and tomorrow. We have 7 divisions as well as 3 or more special programs in the Department of Natural Resources in the Executive Director's Office. Our reach covers energy, wildlife, state lands, state parks, avalanche, and of course, water with 2 divisions, Division of Water Resources and the Colorado Water Conservation Board. And we also host a few special programs. We have the Produced Water Consortium, and as I mentioned, COSWAP that are under the Executive Director's Office. Forest health and wildfire mitigation are at the heart of everything that we do in this state, in the heart of our state's natural resources and critical watersheds. And as you all know, DNR's director, Dan Gibbs, is a wildland firefighter and has been one for a long time and used to serve as Summit County's wildfire mitigation specialist as well. So he's also the chair of this council, and so these issues are near and dear. And but what we're going to do today is really share about 3 programs that we believe forest health and wildfire issues can be plugged into and already are, and hopefully generate some discussion and questions at the end too. So before I turn it over to my team, I just wanted to highlight DNR's strategic priorities. I believe it was now a little over a year ago, the Department of Natural Resources leadership team met and discussed a vision and strategic priorities for the next few years. And we came up with these 5 in our presentation last year to this committee. I also shared about these, but I just really want to have them top of mind, because even though forest health is not directly listed in these 5, it is deeply integral in maintaining biodiversity and implementing biodiversity practices. It's deeply within our tribal engagement goal and vision to deepen those relationships and work together to support our tribal lands and our people. And then, of course, in balancing conservation and recreation, this state is so deeply embedded in recreation. Our economy is a recreation economy, and at the same time, we have. I was looking at actually trying to see, but we're one of the top 5 states with the most national forest land and public land that way as well. So that recreation balance with conservation is so important. But I'm going to hone in last on the climate resiliency. I believe that's where we all know that our forests and our watersheds are at risk in our state. You'll get to learn a little bit more about that too with the Wildfire Ready Watersheds program today. But our forests are the stronghold to many of our most important critical watersheds. And so in light of drought, in light of insect and disease, and in light of a year-round and catastrophic wildfire season, it is ever more important to pay attention to and to manage our forest resources across the state. So now I'm going to pass it over to Courtney Young, and she is going to talk about the Colorado Strategic Wildfire Action Program.
Thanks, Allison. I believe everyone on this committee has heard us present on CoSwap in the past. And so I'm going to try to give some high level stats, what's happening now as the program is evolving and maturing, and then give some exciting updates. Please raise your hand throughout my portion. If you have any questions, I'm going to have to leave the meeting a little bit early. So I'd love to hear your questions about the program right now. We also have two other program experts on the call, Allison and Roberta. So if anything does come up at the end, of course, they'll be able to answer your questions then also. But if you remember, CoSwap was first, it first arose after the 2020 fire season, and it came through Senate Bill 21-258. Allison and I were hired at that time to work with DFPC, the State Forest, the Department of Natural Resources, collaboratively to create a program that would address wildfire risk in strategic areas in the state. And so that's why CoSwap has 10 strategic focus areas, so areas that have high wildfire risk, and that is based on population. And so you'll notice most of our work happens in a concentration of areas, and we have a map on a slide that's coming up where you can see where our projects have been working. We do have two programs within CoSwap. One is our workforce development program, and that works with the Department of Corrections SWIFT crews and conservation corps. It also provides training for folks that are looking to enter the forest health and mitigation field. And some actually funding that this committee recommended a few years ago ended up becoming a workforce, where this committee worked to create a workforce bill that ended up moving some additional money into CoSwap. So there's been really great support at the Forest Health Council and in this committee for this program, which is extremely appreciated. And we're going to talk about some of the successes of the workforce development program in a couple slides, but I just want to say thank you all for your continued support for CoSwap. Our other program is the Landscape Resilience Investment Program, and this works cross-boundary on projects to fund projects that look at a larger scale in terms of partners working together, looking at values at risk across a landscape and planning projects that are larger than our workforce development ones. The program does now have a permanent budget of $6 million. $5 million come from severance tax funding and $1 million from the general fund. And that $1 million was the million that this committee and council helped secure. Yeah, go ahead, Jody.
Sorry to interrupt, but of course I'm in the middle of budget season and I have I'm doing lots of budget cuts. So I'm curious, when you say permanent program with annual budget, do you have any forecasting for, because I know we did get that $1 million for that, which is great. But what is the forecast for any changes to that budget? Do you know yet, or any ideas, or what does that look like? And I know that might be a question, or what do you know so far? I guess it's hard to predict the future, but what do you know so far? Just curious, because I've heard rumors.
I think she is keeping her eye on this. Mm-hmm.
I mean, as of it, that's a great question, Commissioner. Right now we're working on a year-by-year basis as far as planning for for this year. We basically on a year-by-year basis. However, right now there's no indication of any changes coming into the next year, and so that's where we're focused, is continuing to offer our programs every year until we're told we cannot.
Thank you. I thought so, but I just wanted to make sure what we knew, and I appreciate you answering my very delicate question. So thank you all, and appreciate all of you and the work that you're doing right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Judy. Allie, will you hop to the next slide? Great. So this is where we can just take a look at where CoSwap has been working in the last few years. Since 2022, we've supported or funded 117 projects. Over 17,000 acres have been contracted, and we still have most of our projects are in progress. Only just at the end of August did some of our large landscape resilience projects start wrapping up, and we'll have quite a few more wrap up by the end of the year. Over 5,000 acres have been treated to date, and we've invested over $40 million in these projects towards strategic wildfire risk reduction. So here on the map, you can see where our projects have taken place across the state. The areas that are shaded, those are our strategic focus areas. The red are counties, and the blue areas are the RMRI focal areas. And so our landscape resilience investments are mostly offered in these areas, and the Conservation Corps crews are offered in these areas. The projects that you see outside of the strategic focus areas are either training awards, which are available statewide. They might be Department of Corrections SWIFT crew mitigation projects. The SWIFT crews work within a 3-hour drive of their facility in Canyon City. And then we also have a partnership with Wildfire Ready Watersheds, which has allowed us to make a few investments outside of our strategic focus areas in the footprints of the Wildfire Ready action plans. And I'll talk about that more on the next slide. Let's see if I can advance it. Okay, great. So this is where I really want to get into what's changed. What are maybe some things you haven't heard so far? And one change to our program is that instead of offering both of our funding opportunities every year, we're going to be alternating each year. So in 2025, we're releasing our workforce development grant. And in 2026, we will release our landscape resilience investment. And it's going to alternate like that if it goes according to plan. And we're doing this for a few reasons. One, our budget has gotten smaller, and we think it's going to settle in at $6 million. And so it makes sense to more fully fund each of our programs every other year. We also think we'll do a better job at marketing, at least our workforce development grant, if we're not trying to release 2 different awards at the 2 different programs at the same time. And there still will be no break in award. So we'll award the workforce development grant this year, and projects will span for 2 years. So there'll never be a time when people can't be participating in the workforce development program or our landscape resilience investment program. We continue to strengthen relationships with the Ute Mountain Ute tribe and the Southern Ute Indian tribes. And we have a few projects now on Ute Mountain Ute lands, particularly their ranches, and we're in constant communication with them, seeing how we can better meet their needs. And we're excited to announce a new partnership with the Ancestral Lands Conservation Corps. And this is a conservation corps that's made up of members from, I think more than just the 2 tribes that are in Colorado. I think members can join from other parts of the country. And this is something that the Ute Mountain Ute were really interested in working with that corps. So we've brought them into our program so that we can contract with them directly. And we're hopeful that this next workforce development round will have applications where people are looking to work with that corps. Another really exciting update is our workforce development grant is open right now. So it opened last Monday, so not this week Monday, but the week before, and it's going to be open until November 3rd. And so I'm happy to share more information about this with the committee, and if you all have contacts or people who would be interested in applying, we would love to see more applications this year. And then I want to highlight some successes of our workforce development program, especially because this committee and this council has really helped support the workforce development program. We really see the program as having 2 initiatives or 2 goals. One, of course, is to complete strategic wildfire mitigation on the ground. That's why we put these crews on projects. But the other goal is to support the pipeline of people who are interested in doing this work, but they need a supportive environment. They might maybe need a learning environment before they're thrown onto a professional crew. Where can they gain some skills? And we are seeing successes here. It's hard to have statistics, but we're excited to share some anecdotal stories. So we were on a recent visit in Lake County to a SWIFT project, and we heard that a former DOC SWIFT crew member was now working for the city of Leadville as a wildland reserve firefighter. So employed full-time. And I imagine, we've been we have been funding this project in Lake County in Leadville for a few years now. And I imagine that the connections that this member made with the city helped facilitate that employment. So that's one big success. While we were there, we also heard other SWIFT members talk about they're really excited to be applying to join a wildland fire crew in Durango. That's sort of what members of the crew are planning to do when they're released from their service, or like when they complete their time in the SWIFT program. They're planning to go to Durango and join the wildland fire crew. They said it can be a little challenging to join a structural fire crew, but wildland fire crews work really well for them. So that's another big success. It's hard to track statistics on these men, understandably, but we were hearing their excitement and hearing about them, at least one being hired by the city of Leadville. And then many times when we're on CYCA projects or we're meeting with other partners, we hear stories about these Conservation Corps members being hired by local agencies. So I know Jefferson County Open Space and also the State Forest Service have hired on people who come out of the Youth Corps conservation programs. So we do see successes also happening in the workforce development component of this program. I also want to share that the Colorado Forest Restoration Institute is monitoring the COSWAP program. We have a couple contracts with them looking sort of at different scopes of success at the program, and also helping us to improve our program by understanding, are these projects strategic? Are they placed strategically? We have an upcoming contract working with Chaska Waiwaka and her collaborative stages of readiness framework, trying to understand what qualities of collaboration in our grantees help lead to the most successful projects on the ground. And so we don't know what the results of this are going to look like yet, but we hope that once the results come out, we might better understand what are our most successful partners doing in terms of collaboration, and how can we better fund those practices, or how can we better help our grantees foster that type of collaboration. So we're really excited about those monitoring efforts. We also think we're going to be entering, or we're planning on entering into another contract that's going to be looking at return on investment. And this is something we hear Denver Water say sometimes, like when you put this much in, you're getting this much return on investment of avoided costs. And so we're really hoping to have a number like that for COSWAP also. And we think, you'll be able to extrapolate that and talk about strategic wildfire risk has a return on investment in this way. Yeah, Jody.
Thank you. I appreciate that point that you made about cost avoidance. And I'm wondering, is that something we might have some of those numbers for when we have our educational opportunity with the state legislators in January, hopefully, because that would help to kind of help share the importance and the investment. I'm wondering if those numbers might be available for that presentation. Just curious.
Yeah, Commissioner, that's a great question. And I wish I could say yes. We're actually just now negotiating this monitoring agreement. And so those results won't be available for a few more years. We might still be able to work with CFRI and see if there's any other papers or local Colorado studies that we might be able to take numbers from, because I agree that'll be an important number to have, even if it's not specifically for this program. And then the last thing I wanted to share before we transition is the special partnership with Wildfire Ready Watersheds that I alluded to in the last slide when we were looking at the map. And this partnership has allowed us to make investments outside of our strategic focus areas by having these special releases that focus on watersheds and water infrastructure. And so Chris will talk about the Wildfire Ready Watersheds program next, but what we did was we looked at participants of that program, and for those who were far enough along in their process to have projects identified or be able to take action on the ground, we invited them to apply and plan wildfire risk reduction or mitigation projects within the footprints of their wildfire ready action plans. And so far we've done 2 rounds of this release. We have 7 projects funded in total for almost $7 million. And actually just this month or next month, we're going to have our first project wrapping up that's in a wildfire ready action plan footprint. It was being implemented by Jefferson Conservation District, and we're really excited to see the results of that. So before I turn it over to Chris, who's going to talk more about wildfire ready watersheds, I'm curious if anyone has any questions about what I shared or changes to the COSWAP program.
Mr. Morgan.
Yes, the wildfire ready watersheds. So those are primarily the thrust of watersheds specifically, or watersheds mostly within your high priority risk areas. Seems like you've got a 2-path course here, and one is about lives and property, and then you're alternating with the watersheds. A lot of those watersheds are more remote. I guess, are you trying to pick watersheds that are a double duty here within your lives and property area, or are you open to watersheds essentially statewide that would, watersheds for watershed's sake, I guess is a question that I would ask. So
Yeah, that's a great question. Ali, will you go back a slide so we can look at that map again? Okay, perfect. So the little trees that are also blue, those are our awards that have been made in wildfire ready action plan footprints. So you'll see some of them are in our strategic focus areas and some of them are not. Mark, this is a good question. When we think about COSWAP's statute that asks us to reduce risk to life, property, and infrastructure, we think we can also interpret infrastructure to mean water infrastructure and watersheds. And so we do allow ourselves to not only focus on community protection when we're making these awards in a special watershed release. I would say some of the awards we've made in these special releases have been entirely focused on water infrastructure or watershed health. I'm thinking of the Upper Yampa Water Conservancy District. We're doing a project. It's not close to communities, but it's extremely focused on reducing risk to critical water infrastructure, I believe a reservoir and a ditch specifically that provide water to the Upper Yampa Basin. So that project, it impacts communities because it impacts their water supply, but it's not close to communities in terms of it's not going to reduce risk to a home or an evacuation route. Other projects, we have another wildfire ready special release in the Roaring Fork Valley, which is a critical watershed, but the projects still are close to communities. So it's both impacting the risk to the watershed and impacting risk to homes. So when we invite people to apply or participate in these special releases, we sort of let them decide, do they want to put their project around a piece of critical water infrastructure, or do they want to design a project that still is close to communities? So we do have a little bit of a mix, but I would say, as you can see, some of the projects are a little bit more rural, not as close to communities as our traditional COSWAP landscape projects.
I think that balanced approach is a great way to go, because sometimes the water is just as great a financial risk to these communities, especially in the more rural areas. So I applaud you for having that balanced approach, because I think it's important to more of the rural areas to have that watershed protection just as well as lives and property.
Absolutely. And
Go ahead. Sorry, Gretchen, go ahead.
I was going to try to remember some statistics. We hosted a tour at another one of our projects called Michigan Ditch up near Cameron Pass, and maybe I can send out the brochure, but the ROI on that one was quite large as well. You know, we were investing $1 million, but the value of the water in that ditch traveling to Fort Collins was much higher than what we're investing in the project. So I just wanted to, I appreciate that reflection, and happy to know that there's, support for this dual vision.
Great. That's wonderful points. Thanks for the great question and comments, Mr. Morgan. Pat Dorsey.
Yeah, Courtney, first off, those are impressive numbers in a relatively short period of time. And I think it's just awesome that the state has stepped up to support that across the state. I had a question about the SWIFT cruise. Was one of the goals originally that people could, I mean, it seems like there's actually a human component here that we don't talk a lot about. We talk about the workforce and we talk about wildfire, but there's a human component here as far as people getting their lives back on track and finding permanent work and that kind of thing. Have you attempted to quantify that at all or tell that story?
That's a great question. And I think for people who are involved, both on the Department of Corrections side and the Department of Natural Resources side, it's something that is meaningful to us. The idea of providing the opportunity for these men to do meaningful work and gain life skills, and then network with people who could employ them, like the city of Leadville. I think it's really hard to quantify those successes. I think there's a lot of regulations and rules around tracking these men. I don't even think we're allowed to know their names. So we haven't done that. I think it would be great if we partnered a little bit more with the Department of Corrections to see if there's anything they could give us. Maybe it's even just more stories or maybe statistics. I don't know what's available for us, but I like the idea of asking more questions and seeing if there is some way we can tell that story more. And it is a story I think we've felt a little distance from. We have a couple anecdotal tales, but not much stats.
Yeah, and I even wonder, if you gave the people that participate in the program the opportunity to tell their own story, if maybe they could, right? And anyway, I just think it's really cool. So congratulations on that too.
Yeah, I like that, Pat, especially post, like after they've finished their time at the facility. Because I think some of them would be really proud to share what they've accomplished. When we hear people reach out to us, we have people reach out to us, they're very proud. So I like that idea. Like, is there a way to let people know that when they get to make the decision about what happens to their story, if they would like to tell us their story, that could be really incredible. Allison, you're on mute, but.
Commissioner, if I could just add one more to that. Some
Yeah,
of these
go ahead.
stories-
I'm sorry. I just was off mute too. I was trying to get my mute to work. Say, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Pat, and just to the committee, when we're out doing our site visits, and the site visit that Courtney just referenced when we were just in Leadville, I think that's where we get the best information, and we really get to dive deep into the meaning of the work and the meaning, the personal meaning as well of really feeling into the space. And so that's where we got these. That's where we learned about the most recent position in Leadville, right? And someone moving into that position, and then these other opportunities in Durango. So the more we get out with the crews and see the work on the ground, that's where we're going to get the best information too.
Welcome back, Director McCombs. Okay, Courtney, this is really great numbers and great information. It's just really well done. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
And
I
Chris,
think I'll
you're up.
pass it to Chris.
Okay, I'm gonna be brief. I think most people have heard about the Wildfire Ready Watersheds program housed within the CWCB, but just as a quick reminder, this is a pre-fire planning program to address impacts from post-wildfire hazards such as flooding and debris flows. At a statewide scale, we did a susceptibility analysis where we gathered statewide data related to our values at risk, and that was life and property, water infrastructure, and that includes municipal intakes, agricultural diversions, agricultural infrastructure, and reservoirs. We also looked at road crossings, and we looked at some aquatic environmental data that we got from Colorado Parks and Wildlife. So that was our value at risk data that was aggregated together. Then we modeled post-wildfire hazards. So we looked at the hydrology for the whole state in a pre-fire situation. Then we modeled post-fire hydrology based on different burn severity assumptions. We also looked at debris flow pathways statewide, as well as hill slope erosion, and what we call fluvial hazards or the patterns of erosion and sedimentation that take place within the stream channels. So we did this together, aggregated both those hazards and that value at risk, and did a statewide susceptibility analysis. That was pretty good stuff to let us know where we have significant risk around the state. But the real actionable part of the program are these wildfire ready action plans, where we have a template scope of work that allows local stakeholder groups to do what we did at a statewide level, but to do it locally with much more detailed data. They're looking at similar values at risk, but using more detail in that, and they can also add other values at risk to it as they deem appropriate. And we're funding this through our Colorado Water Plan grant program, which is the watershed health and recreation category. Grant applications for that program are due twice a year on July 1st and December 1st. Right now we have 18 of these wildfire ready action plans in progress. We have 4 of them complete. We already have some projects going as well that are associated with these plans or associated with other plans that are very similar. I think the next slide will give us a little more detail if we could go to that one. Yes, Commissioner.
Thank you. And I'm just curious with this map. These are the wildfire area action plans. I'm curious about the one at the top with number 12, which is the what's the name of it? The HOC wrap.
Headwaters of the
It seems-
Colorado, strange name. But
Yeah. It's got, so it's crossed state borders and jurisdictions, and I'm just curious about the partnership or how that works. And I see there's one kind of down into New Mexico too, but I'm just curious the complexity or how is that working? And you know, if it's a really long example, that's fine. Maybe I can ask offline, but I'm curious about that because I see one in my county too that's kind of
yeah. Well, first
lines above that.
I'll just address it simply in that the state of Colorado is only funding work in the state of Colorado. That example you see that goes into Wyoming is a partnership that includes some federal agencies, NRCS, the National Forest Foundation's leading it. So they liked our program and are kind of following suit, but we're not using any Colorado dollars to fund what's going on up there unless it's related to our hazard modeling where we need to know what's going on with hydrology, for example, in Wyoming, because it's drained. There's some small tributaries that actually come into Colorado. But it's just a bigger partnership. I'd like to say that Wyoming was involved in a similar role that Colorado is, but that's not true. It's primarily federal folks in Wyoming that are leading that effort. Can we go to the next slide? Did we include the more detailed map? There we go. So this is a better look at the map here that shows the RAP locations, but it also shows our statewide susceptibility analysis underneath. And you can see these kind of red areas are our most critical areas. That's where we have the most values at risk that are susceptible to post-wildfire hazards. We're doing a decent job of getting folks interested in implementing wildfire ready action plans within those critical areas. But we still got some work to do. Fortunately, we have a long-term funding source for this program to do the planning. as well as to help implement the projects once they're identified. And I'll take questions if we have any others.
Well, if
Just
there
a
are
quick
no-
question I have. Can we, and forgive me, I've had a really busy week with lots of budget and documents. Will we get these slides, or did we get these slides, or can we get some of these maps? It would be great. So I hope, I know maybe everyone else doesn't like more emails, but I would love to have these slides. So thank you.
Yeah, we can definitely provide these for everyone. Well, if there are no questions for Chris, I want to pass it over to Tori to round off our presentation.
Thanks, Allison. I'll be providing an update on a couple of planning and program updates from Colorado Parks and Wildlife's Regional Partnership Initiative. So first, I'll start with Colorado's outdoor strategy, which was presented on last year to this group. But now that the strategy is complete with some exciting resources available to everyone, I just wanted to kind of give a quick refresher. And I know a couple of you were on the steering committee or technical committee, so thank you for your contributions to cause. So the strategy is a collaborative statewide effort that focuses on bringing together conservation, outdoor recreation, and climate resilience planning. The goal of the strategy is a sustainable future to ensure that our natural and cultural resources are protected, well managed, and accessible, while also supporting the communities and economies that rely on them. So this graphic on this slide highlights the 3 North Star goals: climate resilient conservation and restoration, exceptional and sustainable outdoor recreation, and coordinated planning and funding. These North Star goals are supported by 33 coordinating partner actions, which reflect the commitment of the coordinating partners, which are Colorado Parks and Wildlife, Great Outdoors Colorado, the Department of Natural Resources, the Outdoor Recreation Industry Office, and the Governor's Office of Climate Resiliency. And then there are also 39 collective strategies, which are objectives that are advanced by a variety of public and private sector partners and stakeholders. So the strategy launched at CPW's Partners in the Outdoors Conference back in April. And with that launch, we're now entering a new phase of implementation, getting to work on the strategic actions and raising awareness for the strategy and its resources. Concretely, this is the aspect of the strategy that folks will go to when they say that they're using the strategy. So I've included a QR code to the resource hub so you can see this central source where the data, mapping tools, and resources that were developed and compiled are all gathered in one spot. And so, yeah, I encourage you to go to the strategy's website to kind of see the full strategy, but I'll quickly mention some of the resources in the resource hub. So of the 7 resources, we have a data dashboard, which includes state and county level data, summarizing key indicators for conservation and recreation. We have a plan library, which is a searchable database of over 500 plans that include federal, state, tribal, and county plans that touch on the relevant subjects of the North Star goals. There's a guidance framework for tribal collaboration, a first of its kind resource co-developed with the 2 sovereign tribes in Colorado, the Southern Ute Indian Tribe and the Ute Mountain Ute Tribe. There's also an equity, diversity, and inclusion resource and action guide, which is a searchable database that provides resources for entities doing work in the conservation recreation space to ensure inclusive planning. There's both an outdoor recreation and a climate resilience planning guide, which share key resources and data to support planning, including examples of mapping tools and data dashboards that are available. And lastly, there's Codex, the Colorado Data Explorer, which is a mapping platform that includes spatial data for conservation, wildlife, recreation, and climate resilience. We can go to the next slide. As I mentioned, Colorado's outdoor strategy is regionally rooted, and that is where the Regional Partnerships Initiative, or RPI, comes in. So the RPI convenes broad outdoor interests to develop regionally rooted visions and action plans that advance sustainable outdoor recreation and conservation priorities. And since 2020, Colorado Parks and Wildlife and Great Outdoors Colorado, or GOCO, have offered grant funding to support and grow this network. We now have 21 regional partnerships covering about 80% of the state, and multiple partnerships have completed their regional plans over the last 12 months. So now there are 7 coalitions that have final or well-developed drafts of their regional plans and visions that inform their priority projects. So some of these coalitions include NoCo Places, Outside 285, the Route Recreation and Conservation Roundtable, and the San Luis Valley Great Outdoors. We can go to the next slide because building on successes that have been seen across the state, CPW and GOCO have expanded the Regional Partnerships Initiative grant program by directing $50 million over the next 5 years to support the development and implementation of projects that advance the goals of Colorado's outdoor strategy. So this means that the RPI grant program can expand to offer implementation funding to regional partnerships who have completed their regional plans, as well as supporting additional data and capacity needs. On the next slide, we can see the core program objectives that ensure that Colorado's land, water, and wildlife thrive while also providing equitable and safe access to quality outdoor recreation experiences, as well as convening voices from different outdoor interests and sectors. And those really remain the foundation of the RPI grant program. And we're excited to work with GOCO to expand the program so that the regional partnerships can take a critical step in moving from planning to project implementation while advancing Colorado's outdoor strategy. So on the last slide, my call to action to you is to be involved in regional partnerships in your area if you haven't been already. And Pat, I saw that you raised your hand, so I'll briefly stop for a moment.
I didn't mean, I didn't
Sorry,
mean
Pat,
to
go ahead.
stop you in the middle, Tori. I was just going to ask about the grant program. Have you guys decided, are you supporting projects that meet wildlife goals wildlife goals and recreation goals combined or independently? I mean, I think there's some real concern, right? Like the recreation community is concerned that wildlife will outweigh recreation in terms of importance, and the wildlife community certainly has the same concern. So I wondered if you had any criteria on how that grant project is set up.
Yeah, that's a great question. So with funding coming from Great Outdoors Colorado, which comes from the state lottery, GOCO really monitors where their funding goes to in kind of 4 quadrants, being outdoor recreation, conservation, local government, and I'm forgetting the 4th quadrant, but open space, I think was the last one. But yeah, so we'll be kind of looking at it from multiple angles. Ideally, it would be great for projects to kind of have balance within one project that a partnership is applying for funding for. But sometimes we know, like a conservation easement or something might not have a recreation portion of it. And so there might be projects where there isn't like a balance within the project, but we'll be monitoring and tracking with GOCO to make sure that like funding over the 5 years is balanced between those priorities. So I don't have like, a metric or a way that we're going to be calculating it, but that is something that GOCO will be tracking as we kind of fund the money each year. So yeah, thank you for the question. And so, yeah, if you aren't already involved in a regional partnership, it's a great way to have forest and watershed health perspectives and priorities incorporated into really regional planning and implementation efforts. So You can scan this QR code to go to our website on CPW to learn more. I've also included all of our team's contact information so you can get in touch with any questions that you have about joining a partnership. And based on the questions that Courtney posed to the group in the email beforehand, I also wanted to make you aware that there will be a bill running this upcoming legislative session around Colorado's outdoor strategy by providing Colorado Parks and Wildlife added capacity needed to implement the strategy. So this bill is designed to support regional planning, sustainable visitor management, and dedicated staff to implement the strategy's goals, which include advancing exceptional recreation opportunities and conservation. So at its core, this legislation is about fostering the partnerships and improving coordination. And it really will expand CPW's ability to foster that planning effort and support the Regional Partnerships Initiative, which unites those local governments, landowners, recreation advocates, and conservationists. So yeah, that enhanced staffing and structure will really just help CPW. So wanted to mention that, and we'll open it up to any questions.
Thanks for the update on this. It's been a lot. I've heard this a couple of times, and it's really nice to learn some new information every time and find out what this really is. And I'm really excited to get this update today and kind of an overall general thing, information. I appreciate it. Anybody have any questions? I was just signing up and setting up with the QR code, so thank you for that. Okay, so we'll turn this back over to Courtney.
Sorry.
Is there a question in the chat?
No, I can put some links in the chat too if people didn't get the QR codes.
Awesome. Courtney and Allison, so we've, this looks like no questions here, so I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, well, that concludes our presentation for the day, Commissioner, and thank you all for your questions and your inquiry and for listening in this morning. We will definitely share the slides with everyone, and if you have any questions or inquiries after this, please feel free and email us, and I'll put everyone's emails in the chat too.
Morgan.
I had one other question for Chris Sturm, or thought in his presentation up there with your Area 12. I think that's the backside of Battle Pass, and I think some of that water does flow down into Colorado. Is that correct? A little bit of it, yeah.
Yeah, I can't speak specifically to that pass, but there are
Okay.
tributaries in Wyoming that do flow into Colorado. So we're doing a little bit of our hazard analysis into Wyoming.
Yeah. Well, what made me think about that was you were quick to assure us that we were not spending Colorado dollars up in Wyoming, and I understand the politics of that statement. But I did get to thinking that we are spending Colorado dollars to protect watersheds in Colorado that definitely do flow out of the state to other users. And one of the thoughts that I had was, you know, water is not consumptive, but it is in a way. Water that's developed within the state oftentimes goes to reservoirs and stuff that are used primarily for municipal purposes or for agricultural purposes. So we kind of tend to loop that water back into the state. We grow crops with it, or we service communities. But we also develop water that does go outside the state. And we do incur expense to protect those watersheds. And so I guess, not to be too bald-faced about it, but in their criteria for your projects for your watersheds, I think we should look first or weight those where there is that loop back to Colorado if we're going to spend Colorado dollars to protect those watersheds, just as a suggestion, because the municipal ones or the agricultural ones, and it's just a thought. Your presentation was very good, and it just got me to thinking, we're worried about spending dollars going out of the state. Well, we do it in another form. So any thoughts on that, or do you guys have any criteria there? Or
No, I'm not sure I'm understanding all of your comments, Mr. Timber, but I certainly do appreciate that we're protecting water that can and does eventually go out of state. But our primary focus is to protect our values at risk in the state from these post-wildfire hazards. And what we usually see after fire is that these hazards are very localized. So as they get further downstream, they're not as pronounced and we're not as concerned. So the program is very specific to those local areas that you saw on the map. We're certainly trying to fill more of the gaps in those areas so we have more localized protection for our values there.
Thank you. That's a good strategy, I think. I think that's a good strategy.
I certainly appreciate that. Thank you.
Great conversation. Okay, anybody else have anything they want to add, or this was a great overall update. So I'd like to just go real quick to those questions, even though we haven't quite approved them. I think it'd be great just to kind of ground and kind of get used to this. So just kind of overall for all of you, I don't know who wants to go through those, but just overall, just for any of us, the policies and programs are helping your efforts towards forest health and wildfire mitigation. I think, you know, us getting that one policy to put another $1 million in was helpful, and hopefully we get to keep that. But you want to, Allison and Courtney, you want to just go through that list of the 4 and just maybe high level, just any suggestions just for us to kind of get this practice of kind of trying to ask these same questions and glean this information for our list and deliberation going forward.
Yeah, Courtney has to hop off. And so she is going to head off, and Roberta and I can take these questions for CoSWAP. Thank you so much, Courtney.
Courtney, have a great weekend.
So yeah, Robert, I guess I wasn't necessarily prepared for this, Commissioner, but let's do it, right? Well, CoSWAP, I think Courtney really highlighted it in one of her slides of the appreciation for this committee and this council's support for CoSWAP, as well as our other wildfire mitigation programs like the forest restoration and wildfire risk mitigation, administered by the Colorado State Forest Service, and then of course, Healthy Forests, Vibrant Communities. And so, we need that support in these budgetary times of uncertainty has been really helpful. And your voice at the Wildfire Matters Review Committee is something that has been very helpful. So just really quick, I see your hand is up, Commissioner.
Well, I just feel bad that I threw you a curveball about this. This is something we had started with the weekend before, or the meeting before this, just trying to kind of ground this. And I think we had talked about maybe giving the questions beforehand or during. So let me just honor that I threw you a big curveball, and maybe you guys can take these questions and maybe fill them out with just maybe a little more formal instead of kind of throwing in you kind of to pivot and answer these. And then we can, because I'm also looking at our timing, we have a few more things to go through. So why don't we do that? And then maybe you can be, feel like you maybe answer those questions the way you want to. And I think we were going to try to have them sent to whoever the presenter is, just to kind of go forward. So I apologize for throwing you a curveball, but let's go ahead.
Okay for me. But Commissioner, we did send that to Tori because we were excited and to learn about that. And so I would love to pass it to Tori to be able to glean on these questions.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So for the first question, kind of on policies and programs, kind of working towards forest health and wildfire mitigation, I would say the Regional Partnership Initiative Program really helps with this because part of the RPI convenings is having U.S. Forest Service on the regional partnerships. So we're able to identify and raise some of the forest priorities through those partnerships, and ultimately with the goal of providing funding for implementing some of those projects. I think some of the program barriers that we see with the regional partnership initiative is just kind of capacity, especially kind of with what the state we're in now with some of our federal challenges. And so kind of that flows into the wish list for kind of program improvements, and also with the legislative bill that I mentioned that's coming up in the next legislative session to provide CPW with more capacity to support the strategy. Those kind of go hand in hand. So I think just making you guys aware of that bill that will be coming forward. I don't have like the exact name or anything yet to share, but I know our policy team will be working on kind of some stakeholdering as we get closer to legislative session. So I would just say kind of keep your eyes and ears out for that, because that will be helpful legislation for just kind of capacity within CPW.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Well, we'll maybe look at you all to maybe formally fill that out a little bit and send that back to us, and maybe we're going to fine tune that. And maybe, are you guys done with your presentation? That might be a good time for us to discuss this real quick to refine these, because I think Courtney wanted to do this because our next item on the agenda is kind of talking about, I think, next steps and those items. So, so we have those in front of you. Sorry, just pulling up my agenda. So we're kind of reviewing dates and plan presentations. So I don't know, we have to look at the next I don't know, can someone pull up the calendar and looking at the next presentation? And then also just having these in front of us. We have the Xcel Energy and possible other rural electrics. And then we were going to have on the, well, that's in October. No, it's the TNC and Northern Water for the 3rd. So
Commissioner,
Allison,
yeah, we are juggling the potential dates and presentations that you can see in front of us here. I'm sorry, it looks like it doesn't show the entire month. Does that help? Oh, how about like that?
yeah, that looks great.
Wonderful. So we've got communication out to Northern Water, Xcel, TNC, and then possibly other rural electric. And so we don't have anything, we don't have a formal date for either of these, but we believe next month will be filled with these presentations. We just don't know which dates they will take.
Great. All right, so let's talk about these questions then, so we can kind of formalize them, because I'm sure we're going to send these to them beforehand. So does anyone have any questions, concerns about any of these questions, or any additions? You see them in the in the chat box. So I don't know if you can pull up your chat box. There's 4 of them that Courtney and Allison Roberta, I think, kind of fine-tuned. And so anybody, I think that they're pretty good, high level. And the only one I was thinking for number 5 was we don't know, well, I don't know how you would word it, but what question you hope that we will ask, or something that we would learn from the presentation as a council. And I always ask, I don't know what I don't know. And I sometimes may not ask the right question, right? Because this is, these are really wonderful subject matter experts bringing these presentations. So I always like to have that maybe 5th question of what do you hope that, what haven't we asked, or what do you hope we ask to learn? Mr. Morgan.
I would like to see many of these agencies have a fair amount of experience in land management, and some of them have virtually none. So it would be a good barometer of where they were at. I would like to ask them what their vision of forest management would be for their nuts and bolts, where they think what kind of a program they should have. What would their vision be specifically as related to their agency? I would like to get their look at it.
So that'd be 6. I don't know if we want to have many more questions than that. So does anyone have concerns or questions about about adding those 2 or the ones that we have? Allison?
I like that addition, Mark. And I think we maybe even could start with that, with that question and get our presenters to be thinking big picture and then sort of funnel down into more specifics.
Anybody okay with just, we don't know, what do you hope we learn or what do you hope that we ask? Or so I think that's, it might be something they're really hoping that we're asking Pat.
Yeah, I really like that question. I always think that's a good one. And then I wondered about adding to question number 2 when we ask them what are the barriers, to ask what do they see as possible solutions. So I always think it's good to not just give people an opportunity to complain, but like, how would you solve this problem?
That's a fantastic suggestion. Thank you.
Is
Okay. I don't see any other feedback or comments. So maybe Courtney and Roberta and I'm not, Courtney's not here, but between Allison, Courtney and Roberta, we can maybe get this back out to the group just so we have them beforehand too. So we're ready for, I know Courtney sent them out, but now we've kind of refined them. Anybody else have any additions or refinement on the other 4? And I do agree with you, Allison. I think it's great to maybe lead with that bigger picture. So question for Mr. Morgan. Okay, well, let's move on to our next item, which is next steps, which we already have kind of done. But we didn't get a chance to cover last month and we're almost out of time. First question I have is any updates on, I know Courtney's not here, on the special education legislative kind of breakfast thing for January. Did we get on the calendar, Allison?
Last she reached out, we still weren't able to get on the calendar yet. And so she was going to reach back out this next week.
Actually had run into Christina Burry at a CSU breakfast and wasn't talking business, just saying, but I said, hey, how's our storyboards and information going? And so I know they're still working on that. So we were just quick questions. So I just wanted to disclose that, but it was just in passing as we were sitting on separate sides of the room, but we ended up being at the same CSU breakfast. So, okay. Well, we'll move on for that. So any updates from the special session or any other budget items, Allison, and anyone would like to high level or anything to add or anything that we should be watching as a Forest Health Council? I know I'm watching a lot and I'm sure Commissioner Medina, all of us are watching as commissioners and counties and things, but anything as a Forest Health Council lens.
I have nothing to update as far as special session and that, but I do want to just thank the Colorado State Forest Service and Chris Sturm, the Colorado Water Conservation Board. We did a presentation on Monday to the Water Resources and Ag Committee, highlighting 2 really wonderful projects, the Michigan Ditch Project that was mentioned earlier today in the presentation, as well as work in the North Catamount area west of Colorado Springs. And so we came together as a 3-division force, and as well as COSWAP was there. Courtney presented on COSWAP. And so just getting the word out there of the work that we're doing in forest health and how it relates to water. And I should have an update for you at the next meeting of where that committee is at as far as putting forth their recommendation.
Great, I appreciate that update. I was wondering about that. Unfortunately, I had a lot of meetings that day, so I wanted to jump on and listen. So I appreciate that update. I heard some concerns about how that meeting was going to go. So, and I think there was also something about agricultural property assessments and things also that was discussed, and I might need to look into that a little bit more. So any other questions or concerns about our next October being our 3 presentations that month and lots of information? I look forward to our other partners really going to be valued expectations. I'm glad that we're going to get those fine tuned. And just really looking forward to that. So any other things that we really can't go anything off that's not on the agenda, but basically the last item was just update for planning and speakers, updating budget forecast or concerns in the special session. So really that's all we have on the agenda today. So we're going to end a little earlier than we planned, but I'm glad that we had to give ourselves some extra time to get through all that wonderful information and have a great discussion. I appreciate all the great questions. And thank you all for presenting today. Really great information, super exciting to hear, and also really good food for thought, and really important and wonderful programs that are all happening. And I appreciate your time today. So unless there's any burning issues, I guess I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? Great, Pat's going to second. So all those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
I hope no one's opposed. Anybody opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Everyone, happy Friday. Get outside, enjoy our beautiful fall colors. It is just spectacular. We live in such a beautiful state and our forests are amazing. I'm just really can't tell you how much I enjoyed walking through 4 different areas the last week. It's been phenomenal. So I wish you all a great weekend. Take care. We'll see you soon. And it's on October 3rd. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Roberta.